My name is Eric Lassen. I'm a motion graphic artist, based in Idaho. I work from my backyard in a converted shed. I'm originally from the Phoenix area in Arizona, and we lived there for close to 10 years, my wife and I. As far as where I got my start, I got my start like probably 13 years ago, give or take, in Georgia. And when I first started, I had no idea that I was going to actually be in this field. I was just kind of floating through life, if you will. So I didn't go to school to, you know, go to art school. I didn't do any of that stuff. So I just kind of started from scratch at this marketing company. And all I had with me was my portfolio. My background is I was an illustrator. And so I brought my portfolio to this marketing company, and they did a lot of mobile home commercials and car commercials, and they even hosted a Born Again Christian TV show in the studio there. And so I showed them my portfolio, and I told them, like, yeah, I don't like using computers. And they just kind of laughed. They just kind of laughed at me. So they kind of were like my mentors. And they taught me from the ground up how to use Photoshop and how to use After Effects. And, you know, one of my first jobs was to run the camera at this Born Again Christian TV show broadcast they had. And so I would just be running the camera and learning the ropes, going out on you know, carrying the extension cord, setting up lights on shoots and stuff. So that's kind of where I began. And then over the years, I kind of refined my passion. Like I found out over the years that I really didn't like shooting all that much. It wasn't something that I was passionate about. But what I did enjoy was animation and motion graphics. And boy, it was an awkward start because while I was an illustrator, I didn't necessarily have design chops. So everything I did looked really, really bad. And it was just a course of trial and error over the years of seeing what I like, seeing what other people are doing, and trying to emulate that, trying to understand the fundamentals behind what people were doing and trying to, you know, get better. And so I guess my handicap is I'm not the best designer, but I'll try my hardest, and I have a pretty good eye for things. So I kind of figure it out along the way. But anyway, am I rambling on?
No, you're doing great. I mean, it's good to hear that. I've heard the story before, but I think you explained it really well. So that's good to hear.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I was working at agencies. Like we eventually fast forward a little bit. We eventually moved to Phoenix, my wife and I, and we had our firstborn daughter. And I was working at a retail agency, and I worked there for about 6 years. And it was 6 years of just doing really crappy work. And I was just not very happy. Like, I learned a lot, you know. That's where I get my speed. Like, I can work very fast because, you know, like, we got to get a TV spot done in 3 hours. And so you just got to get it done, whatever it takes, you know. But after 6 years of that, I was just, you know, I actually want to do good work, you know. So then I went to another agency that it was still a retail agency, but they actually gave you like maybe a day and a half to do a spot, you know, which still is not that much time, but it's like when you're coming from get it done in a half a day, that's like, wow, that's great. I could do so much. And,
right.
but after working there and just getting burned out doing car ads, I just decided I wanted just to more focus on good design, you know, good motion graphics. And so all the while working at both these agencies, I was like diving into Cinema 4D, trying to get better. And then eventually I found myself up here, and I'm kind of full-time freelance and just trying to make this thing work. And so far, I've been in business for about 2 years, and I'm still here, still able to pay the bills. So I'm very, very blessed and very grateful for that.
Yeah, it's working. Tell me how you run the business. Like who are your clients? How do you get new ones? Where does your work come from? Like all that stuff.
Well, when I first started in my business, the main thing that was going for me was, I guess, like people knew about me in the Phoenix market, and so when they knew that I was freelance, they started calling on me. So I guess there was a lot of word of mouth at the very beginning, which is good. But that doesn't fill all the gaps when you're trying to find work. So what I've always done is I've always, um, you know, well, I should say most of my client work is I work with agencies, and I haven't gotten to the point where I have actual my own clients, which would be great one day. Um, so most of my work comes from studios and agencies, and if there is like a dry time, I usually, go to the websites of these agencies or go on LinkedIn and stalk people and try to find who the creative directors are, just to kind of find out who I need to talk to show them my portfolio, email them, or message them on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever. And that's worked. Like I've actually gotten lots of work doing it that way. The other way is like just having social sites, like having like a Dribble page. I've found worked like a couple clients from Dribble that have been returning ongoing client work, which has been great.
Okay.
Vimeo is obvious because that's where you put all your stuff. But it's just a combination of word of mouth, reputation, uh, going out, making cold calls, trying to reach out to people, and then passively just trying to make sure your social media is up to date and it has really good work on it. So those are like the three different things that have worked for me.
Yeah, I'm impressed. I'm always impressed by you because you're like probably one of the biggest hustlers in the motion like friends that I have that I know. You're one of them. Where do you think you got that work ethic from?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I think that's a good question. I think it's because I mean, probably my family upbringing. I mean, my dad always yelled at me, "Clean your room, get to work," or whatever. Um, but like when I first started working out, when I first got my first jobs, um, it was exciting. Like, wow, like, this is my money. And but just kind of like as an artist, you always have something to prove, right? You always have to say, I'm awesome. Look at me. So you have to back it up with work. You have to back it up with delivering on time, and so I guess that like that pressure of like, oh my gosh, if I don't get this done and if I don't deliver and if it doesn't look great, I'm gonna be screwed. So
Right.
there's just all of that self-induced pressure that just pushes you to want to do the best you can. And what I found is now that I'm like, it was a lot easier to slide by when you're working at a company because it's not your company. You don't have all that stress of delivering to the clients. It's just you're just trying to make your managers happy. But when you
Right.
actually have your own business, your whole world changes. Like you give up a 8 hour a day job for like a 12 hour a day job or more
Yeah.
maybe, because
Right.
it's like it's all on you. Like there's no one else that you can blame but yourself. And so when you're in business for yourself, like you have to work that much harder to get it done. And so I found is when I started working for myself, like it's like screw work ethic. It's like you have to get it done. Like there is no proving anything to anyone other than just getting it done. So whatever it takes.
Right. What are some of the challenges for owning your own business? You mentioned longer hours. What I guess what are some challenges and what are some things that you really like about it?
Um, I'll start with the challenges. The challenges are the like dealing with taxes and bookkeeping and things like that. Like I like to animate. I like to push keyframes, I don't like calculating numbers. I don't like keeping track of expenses. Like that stuff is, like it's like the end. That's the last thing on my list of things to do. And so usually I get backlogged, and then I have to like spend a few days just like catching up and like figuring out where I'm at. And and so to help that, I hired an accountant, and he's like handling my payroll, handling my taxes, handling my bookkeeping, and so I'm very like taking that pressure off you. It feels so much better to have someone else just doing that for you, so that you can focus on what you're good at.
Right.
The other challenges is seeking that fabled utopia called work-life balance, which simply doesn't exist. And so just to kind of talk about the meetup that we had the other night in Salt Lake, where Brent Larson was talking about the work-life balance, and it's so true. Where he was talking about work-life balance doesn't really exist. It's more like a roller coaster ride, and you have your up times where you might have like a few days off or a week off, or where it's like things are just, oh man, I love having this time to myself. And then you'll have times where you're working like 2 weeks straight, like you're working till 10 o'clock at night or midnight or whatever, because you have a big project that's getting done. So it's like you don't have a lot of consistency when you work for yourself. You're kind of like, you work according to the project and when it's due. And if you can get some time for yourself, then that is going to be good for your mental health. Because what I found is when you work nonstop, you get burned out, you lose your drive to be creative, you lose your drive to explore and experiment and try new things, and you start to kind of get a little have like anxiety. Like I'm just talking about me, like started experiencing anxiety, panic attacks. You get a little depressed. It's just kind of it's just very stressful. And so that's kind of one of the challenges that you face when you're working for yourself, especially when you don't really have a lot of motivation. Like you don't have other people in the room like pushing, like you could do it, good job, And so what's kind of helped me is reaching out to other motion designers, people like you and other people in the community, and just being friends with the folks and getting to know people. And it's kind of like therapy. Like you have like this network of people that understand where you're coming from, they care, they're genuine. And what I've noticed is when I've been in tight spots, where I've needed help on certain things, like people in the community have come out and just been amazing to just come and help me out. And it's like, wow, why would they do that for me? Like that just really touches my heart. And it just makes me want to return the favor and just say, if anyone ever needs anything, I'm here for you too, because I totally understand where you're coming from. And I guess that's kind of one of the perks of, being in this field is like, because it is a small community, we're a lot closer,
Sure.
As far as the things that I enjoy, on the financial side, I mean, there's obviously tight times, where you're like, gosh, I hope the checks come in. I got bills to pay. But when it rains, it pours. Like, so like you make more money working for yourself versus being a salary slave at some company working for someone else, building up their dream. But when you're working for yourself and you're removing a lot of the middleman costs, you end up making. I mean, I've made more money working for myself than working for other people, which has been really good. And then having the flexibility of the schedule, so nice to take my kids to school in the morning and then pick them up at the end of the day and just get to see them. And that's like one of the biggest trait. Like the things that I love the most about this is I get to see my kids every day. So when I was working at agencies, I would be away from them. They would only see me at night when I got home. I didn't get to see them throughout the day. And so working here in my backyard, and I have a window looking out at the swing set, and I just see my kids out there playing while I'm working, and it's pretty awesome, that part of it I love.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. How often do you think about your business?
all the time. Especially when you don't have when checks are supposed to be coming in the mail, you're like, oh my gosh, what can I do to be working on my business to make more money,
Right.
so that I don't have to trade as many hours.
That's my next question is, do you have downtime to think about the future of your business, like where it's going to go, what you're going to do with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think like right now I'm going through a transition from being a work for hire freelancer to being more of like a small little creative studio. And what I've been doing is I've been hiring people to help me out on projects. Like I hire illustrators and designers to help me flesh out some storyboards. I'll hire animators to help me, uh, you know, do the animations, and then I'll kind of just have a creative director slash producer role where I make sure that it looks good and it passes my bar of excellence of where it needs to be before I pass it off to the client.
Right.
So doing that, like I think it just that actually started happening naturally because I was getting a lot of work and I just couldn't do it all. And so I started reaching out to all my friends or anyone that I knew. It's like, hey, can you help me out with this? And then while I was doing that, it kind of occurred to me like, well, wait a minute, maybe this could be my business model, and
Right.
distribute the hours and granted I might not make all of that money on it, but it's like I could take on more work on more projects simultaneously, and and still make money and still have fun doing creative things. So I think that's kind of the direction I'm trying to go, and I'm actually in the middle of trying to rebrand my company and coming up with a new logo and new website and stuff. So I think I'm always trying to find ways to grow because I don't want to be 60 years old and pushing keyframes till midnight. I don't. I think like for longevity, like as you get older, you get more tired. You don't have as much endurance, and you kind of want to slow down and enjoy life a little bit more. And
Right.
so I think that like the solution for a person as they get older is to kind of grow your business to a point where you start hiring people to help you because that way, if it's all on you, then your brand's going to suffer. Because there's only so much that you can do or that you know how to do. And if you want your brand to be as best as it can and looking sexy and appealing and people like what you do, then I really truly believe that collaborating with others, building teams, hiring really super talented people that are good at one particular thing that can help you out, like that ultimately will help your brand and hopefully, theoretically, ensure that you'll always have work coming in because people will look at the work. Because bottom line, clients that hire you probably don't really care how it got made. They just care that it looks great and that it tells their story. And if
Right.
you had to hire someone to help you do that, what does it matter?
Looking back, is there anything that you would change or do differently if you could go back in time?
Yep, 6 months savings.
What?
6 months personal savings for
6 months. Okay, that's good.
because I mean seriously, like if someone is going to go into business for themselves, like yeah, you'll make more money and you'll and all this other stuff, but there will be times where you're like, crap, how am I going to pay my mortgage this month, or how am I going to buy
Right.
groceries for the kids? And so I kind of jumped into this, I jumped without any kind of parachute, just thinking, all right, I'm taking a big leap of faith. I'm going to do this, now or never.
Right.
And I'm doing it and I'm surviving, it's working out, but it's just, if there's any advice I'd give to someone who's thinking about doing this is save your damn money. don't be don't be a consumer. Like seriously, like you don't need an Apple Watch. You don't need cool little gadgets. Like if you really want to focus on just doing art and you want to focus on quality over quantity, then live a frugal lifestyle. Save your money, delay gratification, and if you do those things, then you don't. It doesn't cost as much. Your overhead is very low, and it won't cost you as much to survive. And the benefits are you can be more picky and more choosy on the types of projects that you want to work on. But if you're in a position like me where you didn't plan for that, you're kind of like, well, I'll take any work I can get. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that will hurt your brand also, because like if you're just taking any old work and you're spending all of your time on work that you're not even going to be proud of, that you're just doing it for the money, then that's less time that you get to be working on work that's actually going to help your brand and that reinvest into your brand in the long run. So,
right.
You got to have good discipline to on the financial side. As far as advice for customer service, I highly implore every person to be a good communicator with your client, to the point where you over communicate with your client. I had a situation, and I'm still making mistakes. Like I'm still like kind of dropping the ball on certain things, but I'm getting better. So there's a situation where I was working on a project and I did not communicate like I should have. And because I didn't communicate, it caused duplicate work, like work that wasn't necessary, that added to the budget, that wasn't even planned for, and it pissed off the client. They weren't happy. I felt like a fool. And and that was like a big wake up call for me that, you know what, I need to communicate. I need to read all the emails. I mean, bottom line, like when you're working with your client and they're putting their head down to sleep at night on their pillow, you don't want them stressing out about you. You want them to be stressing about everything else in their life. But as far as the work that you're doing for them, like you want to give them peace of mind. And one of the best ways to do that is to always be proactively communicating with your client, letting them know where you're at, how your progress is, when you're going to deliver. And when you do those things, that just builds relationships. And when you build those relationships with clients, those relationships of trust, they will always, well, maybe not always, but they will come back to you. Like you will have ongoing clients. And for me, I have clients that keep coming back to me, which is a good thing. And hopefully it's because I'm trying my best to be a good communicator and not have them stress out about me. Because I'm supposed to solve their problem. I'm not here to create more problems for them.
Right. Well, I'd love if I hire somebody and they're just prompt on communication, good or bad. I don't know, just if they're prompt on it, they show me like a progress report. I appreciate it so much. So I think it's nice to like have time and not communicate with the client. They're like, oh, I just don't want to, like I'm working, I don't want to tell them what I'm doing and stuff like that. But you're absolutely right. I think everybody just loves having progress. Like if they're going to pay for your services, they like to hear how it's going, get updates. How do you deal with, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, it helps keep you accountable to the project.
Oh, for sure.
Because bottom line, it's your project, it's your company, it's your reputation, your brand, so you need to take ownership of that project. And you can't just, skip the small stuff like writing an email back and letting them know how things are going.
Right. How do you deal with, like if you made a mistake, like you said something wrong or you didn't deliver exactly what you said, I don't know, some mistake that you have regret about. Do you ever have that? And if you do, how do you deal with it?
I do make mistakes. And to me, like honesty is the best policy. Just because the people you're dealing with are human beings, and don't bullshit a bullshitter kind of thing. Like people, if you're gonna like tell them fibs or half truths or only exaggerate here and there and say, oh, I'm having these problems with my computer or whatever, like if you're lying, first of all, it's the wrong thing to do, and second of all, it's just opening up a whole other set of problems. So for me, I strive. I'm not perfect, but I'm always striving to be honest and open with my clients. So if it's my fault, then I let them know, like, I dropped the ball on this. This is my fault. I take ownership of it, and I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. You know, bottom line.
Yeah.
You just gotta be honest.
What would you say to like the new people learning After Effects or learning Cinema 4D and they're, wanting to get in the industry? I personally think your advice of saving 6 months worth of expenses, I think is one of the best ways to start out, 6 months to a year, and then going on your own. But is there any advice that you would give to like people starting out, whether they want to start their own business or they are looking for work at an agency?
This is a good question. It depends on who it is. Like if you're talking about someone who's gone to art school and already has the fundamentals established, or if you're talking about someone like me where they didn't go to art school and they didn't have those fundamentals established, like design, colors, typography, composition, all that stuff.
Someone more like you, I would say.
So if it's someone like me, like, bottom line is, it's your demo reel that's gonna sell your work. That's gonna sell what you can do for them. And if you don't understand how to use color, if you don't understand how to use typography, if you don't know how to, position things on the screen in a beautiful, appealing kind of way, it's gonna hurt you. And the other thing too, like on the animation side, like if you don't know how to tell a story with animation, if you don't know how to follow the fundamentals, the 12 fundamental principles of animation, like if you don't know that stuff and your stuff kind of looks linear and mechanical, because I've over the years working at agencies and meeting other After Effects users, like there's a ton of people that know how to animate something from point A to point B. They know how to push all the buttons, but the thing that really that they lacked was a good sense of design. Like me, like I don't really care. How should I put this? Like if I hire someone and I want them to work on my project, I need to see that they understand these basic fundamentals, that they know how to tell these stories and make them look good and appealing. But if what I see in their demo reel is very stiff and linear and not very dynamic, and it doesn't look very good, like design's poo-poo, then I'm not going to hire them, because I have a certain level, like this is what it needs to be. And so if there was any advice I give to them, is they need to just get down in the book and learn that stuff. And if they're not even like self-aware that their stuff looks bad, then that's not a good sign. Like they need to be in a position of humility to know that they could improve and be better. And like, for example, when I do a project, like I get excited about it, I work on it, and then like after I'm done working on it, I look at it, I'm like, oh man, this is really horrible. I hate this, I could do better next time. And so it's kind of like you're always pushing yourself to do better and never be content with where you're at. So yeah, I think it's just having good taste and being self-aware of where your stuff is at compared to where it needs to be, and then working towards that goal and whatever it takes. And that just takes time and experience, and making thousands of really crappy pieces of work, and then eventually you'll start making good work.
I think that's good advice. There's just want for like the listeners and stuff, if they're wondering like how to learn the principles of animation or like what resources they can go to. I found some that I go to is School of Motion. He had an animation boot camp, and he went over some of the principles of animation, and then like how to do it with keyframes and with the graph editor and stuff like that. And then I think J.R. Knest, I think he has a class on Learn Squared that he goes over like the principles of motion, and he actually has a GIF online. You can look it up where it goes over the principles that he teaches in that class. But I think like if you can duplicate the movements of those principles, then you can make your work look so much smoother.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. Yeah, I mean, it's literally like, when you're going after a certain look, it's not just a simple A to B. It's like you might have to go in there frame by frame and manipulate something, or go in there and tweak the graph editor for like an hour before you figure out how you want it to look. So there's just a lot of work involved. Like, I mean, and this is kind of a tangent issue. I know we didn't talk about it, but it was just like, stuff that you want to use in your demo reel. Going back to advice to give people is the stuff that you put on your demo reel. Make sure it's you.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
If you're using a bunch of presets, if you're using a bunch of tutorial stuff, like if you're gonna go work for me, I've seen all those presets and I've seen all those tutorials, so you're not fooling me. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's got to be you, and so that's kind of like the goal is like so the stuff that you're going to show off on your demo reel, as much of it as you can, have it be you. If there's like an element or whatever, then I'm sure you can get away with it, but by and large, it has to be you.
Yeah, I totally agree. If like someone uses a template or something like that, I think templates, they have their place. Like if you're on a deadline, you need to use a template. It's for a client, they don't care about it. I think it's acceptable. But yeah, for your demo reel, I'd say like if you're using a template someone else created and you're showing it off like it's your work because you changed the colors or something like that, I don't think that's that impressive at all.
No. I mean, I have a philosophy called one for the meal, one for the reel.
Yeah.
So you are gonna do craft work that you just have to get done, and it's gonna pay the bills, and that's great, But you will have the opportunity to do something special. So yeah, I've dealt with people that are like, they're like these little divas, and they're like, oh, I can't do that. I can't do a car spot. It's just so beneath me. I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, because you're some 20-something-year-old young guy who's got no family, no responsibilities, so you have that luxury. But it's like if you have a family or you have obligations, it's like there's nothing wrong with honest work, whatever it is. And that's kind of a lesson I learned from my grandpa. Like he was telling me when he used to work on the farm shoveling manure, like he didn't think of that job as beneath him. Like he said that was honest, good work, and it earned him money. So it's like no matter what it is, like you need to take pride in what you do. And if it's something that's that's quote unquote beneath you, it's like you just need to change your attitude, especially if you want to survive and pay your bills and be successful in the long run.
Right. No, I love that advice. And that's why I totally respect you, because you're a hustler and you understand that you're not always going to do sexy work. You have to do crafty work. I swear I've done jobs where I feel like I'm getting worse at motion design. But it's like it's like what you say. One for the bills, one for the reel, or whatever how you say it. One for the meal, one for the reel.
Yeah. That's funny.
No, I swear, like some jobs I'm like doing it for days, I'm thinking, wow, like I might be getting worse at motion graphics. I found the thing, so I'll send a link to it. It's just the 10 principles of motion design, and it's a GIF that J.R. Knest, I think that's how you pronounce his name, he published, but he actually teaches a class as well on Learn Squared. I think Ash Thorpe started that. But I think these principles of animation, I think they originated from Disney. I think Disney came up with the principles, and there's 12. You said. Am I
Yeah.
correct?
Well, there was
And there-
there was a book put out by Disney animators, and they went
The
through
Illusion
all
of
the
Life.
yeah, The Illusion of Life. They went through all the films and kind of condensed everything down to 12 basic principles, and it's really fascinating. It's like, wow, it opens so many doors. Like, if you're looking for ideas, like, go back to the principles, and they can give you some ideas, you know?
Totally. I even think just something as simple as anticipation makes such a big difference. We anticipate that movement right before. And they're almost simple. Like, I remember learning about them. I saw a Vimeo video someone did of the 12 principles of animation, and it just looked beautiful. But I didn't really dissect it and take time to implement in my work or learn it. And once I finally took the time to learn some of them, I haven't mastered all of them. It just really made a difference in my work. So I think these principles, I'm so happy to be able, like, to find them. That's the main thing. Like, if I were to like hire somebody, I'm like, look, like, if they implement some of the principles of animation, I'm all about them.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's because I didn't go to school for this, and I'm still learning. I'm still fumbling my way through the dark, holding a candle. Like, I'm still getting, like, improving on these things. Like, I don't have it all mastered, you know? Like, I have certain things that I'm really good at, but there's other things that I haven't quite mastered. So it's just an ongoing process, and so it's always good to go back to the basics and just get a refresher. And I mean, I'm actually working on a project right now where it's a squash and stretch type project where I'm having to animate, you know, make animations of like a square, doing different kind of animations using squash and stretch. And so you
Nice.
really, like, it just opens up your mind, like, of what you can do, and it's just kind of fun and exciting. I mean, eventually I'll be able to share it, but right now it's client project, work in progress kind of thing.
Yeah. Tell me about, like, what type of work you're getting, or like what. I'm just trying to think if there's, like, are you getting work like Instagram spots? Like, people like want animation Instagram? Are you getting car commercials or like TV commercials, internet, explainer stuff? What type of work are you getting?
Yeah, so I guess it's just a little bit of everything. I get a little bit of car commercials, you know, retail type stuff. I get a lot of TV spots. I mean, over the years, I've probably done thousands of TV spots. So it's something I'm good at. Hold on, someone's coming at the door. Okay, thanks, honey. That was one of my Rugrats. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
But anyway, so yeah, it's a. Hold on. Okay, I'll be there in a minute, all right? And see, that's the other thing with running your business is you have kids and they come in on client calls, so.
No, it's all good. I think it's cute.
Living in the real world, you know?
Right, exactly.
So basically, yeah, it's a combination of TV spots, a combination of explainer / corporate videos. People might want a logo animation. They might need transitions. That, like, you know, people that are editors will reach out to me and say, "Hey, I just need some graphics package made for this project." You know, so it's just a little bit of everything, and which is good. It's like if I kind of like when I was working at the retail agencies and all I did was mattress store commercials and car commercials, you just kind of get numb, like you just start to hate your life. But having like this variety of the different kinds of work that you can do makes it more interesting, and I really like that.
Right. Cool. I like that. Well, Eric, I think our time is up. I got to get back to work. But,
Me too.
thanks again for taking the time for the interview.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.